everybody. Welcome back to Memory Lane Unscripted. Part interview series, part video game nostalgia trip. Memory Lane Unscripted is based on the offshoot of my video series of the similar name, where I discuss some cool games with some even cooler people. New episodes once every last Sunday of the month at youtube.com/ShockandMcPain, this very channel, as well as Google Podcasts by searching Memory Lane Unscripted. Joining me today is none other than the JRPG girl herself, Ryley MacDonald. How you doing, Ryley?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Good. Thanks for asking. So I usually open this up, and talk about a little bit about yourself, and what got you into gaming, sort of things.
It's definitely my dad that got me into gaming. Started on the PlayStation.
Yeah.
The original, not none of the newer stuff, but yeah, and just moved on from there. I stream on Twitch once in a while when I feel like it, and yeah, that's pretty much it about me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, is there a particular game that you remember that started your PlayStation experience? No pun intended.
Must have been Spyro was the first one, but that was like,
Okay.
yeah, I barely remember half of what I played on PlayStation.
Fair. I feel like I was posed the question earlier this month, I think it was, where it was like, so what's the first game you ever played? And I'm like, that's I think I should know that, but at the same time, I don't know definitively. I know my first console was the N64. And so I know that, I remember playing Mario Kart, I remember playing Super Mario 64, and Blast Corps, and that sort of thing, but I was just like, I don't know what the first one really was. They've just always been in my life, as far as I can remember. So yeah, I feel like it's hard to dig down and be like, oh, this is what this is what made me the monster that I am today. But is there a game? This is I'm ever evolving this podcast, but is there a game that that really hit you that was like, no, gaming is gonna be more to me? For me, it's like Kingdom Hearts, where I'm just like, man, this could be something more than just playing Mario or a high score. Like, it can get deep. Is there a game that's that's something like that for you?
Monster Hunter.
Okay, and the topic of the show today. I love it. All right, well, let's just get into it then. What game brings you eternal joy, Ryley? What have you brought for us today? Obviously, it's the Monster Hunter series.
Yeah.
Tell us a little about your experience with the Monster Hunter series.
So I started originally on the original version, PlayStation 2, way back in the old days. And I don't know, it just kind of sucked me in, but it's like this weird thing is, so you're just like, oh, I can be myself, who I want to be, and I just go and beat the crap out of monsters. And these are insane. There's like a giant dragon come down after you. You're like, whoa, my God, what's going on?
What's going on, dude?
Yeah.
I love it.
It's way different than regular JRPGs, where it's like, okay, you got your little battle turn-based, and this is just like, this thing pops in, you got to think fast, or else you're done.
Like I told you before the podcast, I very much got in, I think it was 3 Ultimate on the 3DS. I remember one of my friends when I worked at Toys R Us was like, hey, do you want to play Monster Hunter with us? And I'm like, you know what? I've been wanting to jump into that franchise, so let me try it. We tried 3, and I was like, I played for maybe a couple of months, and I was really into it, and then I just dropped off. And then when World came out, I played that a ton. And, I still, get urges to want to go back to it. But I know that a lot of definitive Monster Hunter fans say, it's not exactly the best one. So I'm like, all right, well, I kind of want to branch out. And, with Rise coming out, that's something that I would be interested in jumping in, especially with the Switch, being able to kind of bring that around and kind of use that time sparingly. But, yeah, what's the thing? Is it just the sprawling world that got you into Monster Hunter? Or is it individual things, or just the overall encompassing experience?
I feel like it was a bunch of individual things. It's been a while since I've even looked at the original version, but it's basically the world was just so interesting. It's like, okay, so it's kind of it's medieval, not really magical, but there's things in there that felt magical. It's like you had the all these different characters, and some were not actually human, some were kind of these elf people and stuff like that. It was this very lightly fantasy game, but it was mostly just like you're your human self and you just go out and you have to fight these fantastical creatures and hopefully you don't die all the time like
Right.
I did. Yeah.
Right. And I feel like in my experience, it's one of the Monster Hunter is one of those I get knocked down, I get back up again sort of things where it's just
Yeah.
like you could tackle like a Rathalos right off the bat,
Mhm.
where like you find yourself with these daunting monsters, and you might not succeed the first time, especially if you're playing single player,
Oh, yeah.
and you have to keep coming back to them anyways because of getting new gear. And I don't know if that was how it was with the earlier games, but like I know with World, like you had to get that new gear and grind the materials, kind of like a survival game, but
Yeah.
definitely boiled down to its grassroots.
It was the
um
same way back in the original. It was just a lot harder.
yeah,
You
yeah.
pretty much had to play online or else you were screwed.
Interesting. And that's in
Yeah.
the PS2 generation. Like
Yeah.
I didn't even like realize that there was a like not Ethernet port, but a telephone port. I don't know what that's actually
No,
called.
not you get
Is it
Ethernet on
Ethernet?
them as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
it looks like a modem in the back of it.
I remember like seeing it when I used to play like Star Wars Battlefront 2, the original Star Wars Battlefront 2. And I was like, "Oh man, we could play multiplayer with this." And I like trying to get my like dial-up telephone cord, and like, "Oh, this is smaller than what that is." So, yeah, it was very much a foreign concept to me at that time. But so did you play a lot of multiplayer with that or with the originals, or was it more?
So, I never played actually any multiplayer with the original, like, I, like, checked it out at a friend's house and I was like,
Mhm.
"What was this?" Like, go in here, I was like, "That's what it was for," but,
Mhm.
once the PlayStation, like, portable versions came out, like, that's where I was like, "Oh, at school, I'd be able to play with friends or just people I met," and then, like, once the 3DS versions came out, you could, play online sometimes, and then finally Monster Hunter Worlds kind of just definitively just made it like you play with anyone.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's slowly evolved, so it was, like, slowly starting out slow, getting more people, and then it was just like, I could play with anyone.
Well, I think that the multiplayer is a thing that really drew people in, especially with the 3DS generation. The portableness of the Monster
Mhm.
Hunter like not genre, but the Monster Hunter series, um, really brought it out to where like you would talk to people on the school bus about playing. Again, I didn't have this experience, but I imagine like like talking to people on the school bus, and being like, hey, do you want to grind this this monster? And you had I'm assuming, what was there ever one on the DS? I think it was on the PSP, right?
Yeah, there's PSP,
Which
and
was
then it moved to the 3DS.
okay. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I remember there was Frontier on the PSP. That was when I had a PSP, and I was like, "Oh, what's this?" But like, kind of only
Yeah,
cursory glance knew.
yeah. Frontier was actually an MMO game that came out, you're talking about Freedom Unite, or
Freedom
Freedom and Liberty
Unite.
Unite.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
'cause
You're
there's
right.
Freedom Unite, and then they came out with the 3rd one, which is a little weird.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so was there a Monster Hunter 1 and 2? Like there was Monster Hunter 1, I know, but like was there a Monster Hunter 2, or was it just like
Yeah, it was considered Monster Hunter 2, and it also came out on
oh, okay.
PlayStation Portable, and then it was called Monster Hunter Freedom 2. So
Okay.
they basically made Freedom, what on the PSP was technically the original game with, like, new stuff in it. It was basically the Japan's G version of the game, which they call them, and that got very
Yeah.
confusing.
Well, that's the thing that was brought up recently, right? With World, where it was like, oh, we're getting the G version. And it's like the more difficult levels, and I'm like, man, I thought they were difficult already. I
Right.
thought they were already, like they were already pretty grindy and pretty difficult. Do you have any specific memories with the game that you want to share, like a sort of like experience? You're like, oh wow, like this benefited me more than just the gaming side of things.
I would honestly have to say, like, going into, like, there's a fight you do kind of like in the PSP versions, you fight this big thing is called the Laotian. It's a massive, massive dragon,
Hmm.
and I was just like fighting that thing because it's so big. You're just like, how do I tackle this? But it was just like, oh, like you have all these things you can use around, like guns and that. I was just felt like they kept on adding in more things you can do, and I was just like, I didn't expect this of this type of game. I was like, okay, straightforward, fight this monster, and I was like, oh no, like I could just do this. I could disable it. It just felt like they were trying to like bring me in with more interesting things to do each fight.
Yeah, yeah. I think that the Monster Hunter series has prolonged because of. I mean, like you think about it really, and I think like it's the first games as a service almost. I don't know if that's insulting, like saying that, but
I would agree. Like I don't think it's insulting. I
yeah,
would agree. Like it's kind of like we would like on the PSP versions, like you were able to get like DLC content,
right.
like little missions, little outfits for your pigs, and I love the pigs.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well,
There's like
the little, I mean, the pagan world, and then I love the palicos. The palicos are my favorite
mm,
part of those
have a
games.
little one right
Oh,
here.
I love it so much. They're just like I mean, I love cats so much anyways. But like on top of that, like having your own little cat creature that can follow you and help you on quests
Mhm,
is amazing. And the fact that like in World with the whole the chef
uh,
Palico, I was just like, "Oh man, this is everything. Like this is aesthetic right here."
well, actually, they've always had the chefs. That's the thing.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, I
Pretty
know.
much, yeah. Yeah, they've
Uh,
had cooking, except for one game, instead of cooking, they had a hot spring.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
In 3, I don't remember. So was there like a overt chef personality in 3 and that sort of
Not not that I remember. I think World was the one that kind of brought in the 2 chefs, well, now 2 chefs.
yeah,
But I
the one with
don't
like the little
remember
scar
really,
in his
like
eye. Just
yeah, and
like
then,
this badass looking cat. It's like yes, yes, this is good.
in Iceborne, you get, like, the old lady who trained him how to cook, and,
That's
it's really
awesome.
fascinating. Yeah.
Now you're making me want to
Um,
play some Monster Hunter. What's your favorite monster in the Monster Hunter series? I would say is what. I really like just I'm generic Rathalos. I really like that Rathalos look.
So generic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so, honestly, I would have to say I love the Kieran.
Okay. Yep.
If you know what the Kieran is,
Is
little
that's the
lightning
lightning.
horse.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
That is a
and that's
great
really what
design.
my little Palico is, and that's what my cute little adorable, she's got the
I
armor,
love it. Man,
Kieran armor, I was like,
aren't
yeah.
Nendroids great? Is that a
I
Nendroid?
have yeah, I have, like, 60.
Oh man, they're so cool. I want to
Yeah,
see like they're the midline between like Funko Pop
and, like, full
and like full
figures.
figure where I'm just but
Yeah.
I'm like I don't really want to spend $40 on this, but like also that's pretty cool. Like I don't really want to
I
spend
know.
$10 on a Funko Pop.
No.
Like yeah, the I've always heard is it Kieran? Is that the name?
It's like Kieran, Kyron, however you wanna pronounce
Karen,
it. I
Karen.
pronounce it Kieran.
Yeah, the I've that's the one thing when my friend was telling me about the Monster Hunter series. He goes, "Dude, when Kieran gets going,
Oh, yeah.
you best get out of the way." And I'm like, "Oh, what? It's gonna be fine." And then fighting him, and I'm fighting him in the world, and I'm just like, "Oh, I get it, I get it."
Yeah.
Kind of
It's
getting
one of
that
those, "Oh, you pissed
nomenclature.
off, you gotta run."
Right, right. Well, like you know, like it's interesting, like finally when you get that lingo, especially with those type of games where it's just like people who play Destiny, it's like, oh yeah, Zur and Crota. Like it's just like
Yeah,
you have no frame of reference, so it's just like, what are these words? And then you actually like, oh, I see what they're talking about.
yeah,
I
you're
see the
learning.
daunting task ahead of them. Sort of thing. Yeah. Um, what was I gonna say? There was one other thing I was gonna ask. So, what is your favorite in the series?
Okay, so it is actually a weird one.
Okay.
So when Monster Hunter Tri came out, and then they made like the 3DS version, there was
Hmm.
also another Monster Hunter 3, and it was called Monster Hunter Portable 3, or Third, whatever you want to call it. But it came out on PSP and PlayStation 3, but it was only Japanese. So when you wanted to play it, you played it, and that's the one with the hot springs, and it was all like Japanese
Interesting.
style world. It was one of the first places where there's a lot of destructible things in the environment. Is quite. quite interesting. And I actually have the PlayStation 3 version somewhere in his apartment. But I also used to play on PSP with French translation and don't want to get into the whole legality system, but I paid
Right.
for that game and I was like, I want to play this.
Right. Just give me. That's like in Mother 3, where it's just like, I'm never gonna be able to play this. Like, Nintendo's never gonna release this. I remember
Oh
when
no.
when the Wii U generation, every single direct is like, Mother 3 though, and then like Undertale came out, and then there was
Mhm.
less of that. Yeah, that the importing is a recent occurrence to me, because I imported Gundam Breaker 3, because I love me some Gundams and building some Gundams, and even if like canonically in the game they're toys, I don't care. It's amazing. I can make my own Gundam. And I'm like, they're like, well, if you get the Singapore version, it's all English. And I'm like, deal.
Yeah. There's a lot of those games out there. The East Asia stuff is just like, oh yeah, it's all English.
Right.
Just broken.
Right. Yeah. Well, Breaker 3 was left a little bit to be desired, but at the same time, I got my Gundam game.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a pretty good stopping point to what we overall think of the Monster Hunter series. So do you have any sort of like ties to like a specific generation with this series? Like, do you think about the 3DS as the overall overarching, like, this is the pinnacle of the series, and where should people start, I guess is what I should say?
Honestly, for most people, I'd say start on World because it is definitely one of the easiest to get into.
Mm-hmm.
They hold your hand a bit more than the other ones where they're just like, all right, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that one's a good start, but also I'm curious about Rise. Like that's probably going to be
Right.
very similar in ways, and I'm excited to try it out. Like, but my definitive versions were always the PlayStation P version, like the PSP
PSP
version, the
version.
PlayStation Portable, because like that's where I played the most. Like I remember looking at one of my save files and it was like 700 hours. I'm like, oh boy.
Nice. Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
I think like when we get so invested in games like that, it becomes a little bit a part of ourselves and who we are. And obviously, you have your Nendroids over to the side of you. Like, I think like that's what makes gaming so special, is that we can share this community of people. And like we were saying before, you do have the added structure of, like, of of being multiplayer, and then you're talking in the same sort of language,
Mm,
where it's like, like the Kira, I'm gonna mess that up, and I always
sure.
have messed that up, but the Kiran and the Rathalos and the Palicos, like that sort of thing, like that we can all have this shared gaming language. And I think that Monster Hunter is definitely one of those special games, and hopefully Capcom will continue to get the series to flourish. But thank you, Ryley, for joining me. Where can people find you? Of course, you said you have a Twitch.
Yep. It is red_velvet. So it's REDD_VELVETTE. Very confusing.
And of course, it'll be in
So
the
that's
description below. I'll
yeah,
put it in the
and that's my
description.
Twitch. And my Twitter is the same thing except for one extra underscore. So you have two right next to each other. Doesn't matter which side of the one you put it on.
Nice. And then what's your Twitch schedule? Or do you
Oh,
have a regular Twitch schedule? I guess I should have asked you.
I'm working on it a little bit.
Mhm.
Normally I do Sundays, Mondays, and like one day in the middle of the week, but I work so much, it's like
I get it.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think if that's it, if you don't have anything else to plug, I think we can round this out.
I think
Thank
we're
you
good.
so much, Ryley, for joining me, to
You're
sharing your
welcome.
love of Monster Hunter, sharing all the collective love of gaming. Until next month, everybody, take it easy.